Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe. Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Shri Gopal Jaya Shri Gopal Jaya Shri Gopal Jaya Shri Gopal. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Gurudev. Gaur Premanandi. Jaya Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajakacarya Stotra Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jaya. Jaya Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajakacarya Stotra Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki Jaya. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Jaya. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jaya. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय, नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय, गंगा मई की जय, जमुना मई की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, श्यामविद भक्त वृंद की जय. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So we're continuing to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 18, which is entitled Description of Varnashram Dharma, Text 18. Please repeat after me. Viksham Chaturshu Varneshu Vigaryan Varjayam Sucharet Saptagaran Asankalptams Tushye Labdhena Tavata Viksham Chaturshu Varneshu Vigaryan Varjayam Sucharet Saptagaran Asankalptams Tushye Labdhena Tavata Bhiksham Chaturshu Varneshu Vigaryan Varjayam Charet Saptagaran Asankalptams Tushye Labdhena Tavata. Viksham Chaturshu Varneshu Yamanasare Saptagaran Asakaltam Labdhena Tavata. Viksham Chaturshu Varneshu Vigaryam Vanjam Sare Saptagaran Asakaltam Tushye Labdhena Tavata. Matajis. Bhiksham, charity obtained by begging. Chaturshu, among the four. Varneshu, occupational divisions of society. Vigaryan, abominable, impure. Varjayan, rejecting. Charet, one should approach. Sapta, 7. Agaran, houses. Asankalptan, without calculation or desire. Tushyet, one should be satisfied. Labdhena, with that obtained. Tavata, with just that moment, with just that amount, Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Rejecting those houses that are polluted and untouchable, one should approach without previous calculation 7 houses and be satisfied with that which is obtained there by begging. According to necessity, one may approach each of the 4 occupational orders of society. Purport. Saintly persons in the renounced order of life may beg from strict followers of Vedic culture to obtain foodstuffs and other bodily necessities. According to Vedic injunction, a renounced saint should beg from the Brahman community, but if there is danger of his starving, he may beg from Kshatriyas, then Vaishyas, and even Shudras if they are not sinful, as expressed here by the word Vigaryan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that asankalptan indicates that one should not approach certain houses, calculating, in that place I can get first-class food. That house has a big reputation among beggars. Without discriminating, one should go to 7 houses and be satisfied with whatever one may obtain there. One should beg for one's personal maintenance only from houses where the inhabitants, being sincere followers of the Varnashram culture, have earned their livelihood by honest means and are free from sinful activities. One may beg alms from such householders. One must not beg alms for one's personal maintenance from those who oppose the Supreme Lord's devotional service, for such service is the whole purpose of Varnashram culture. Those who oppose Vedic culture pass laws to make begging by saintly persons a criminal act. They thus insult and persecute saintly beggars, considering them to be ordinary vagrants. A lazy person begging to avoid work is certainly abominable, but a saintly person dedicated to the service of the Lord and practicing the discipline of begging to develop full dependence on the Lord's mercy should be given all facility in human society. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that there are 3 forms of collecting alms. Madhukar is the process of imitating the bee, who collects a tiny amount of nectar from each flower. In this way, the saintly person accepts a very small amount from each person, avoiding social conflict. The process mentioned here is asankalpita, by which one indiscriminately approaches 7 houses, being satisfied with whatever may be obtained. Prakpanita is that process by which one establishes regular donors and collects one's maintenance from them. In this regard, Srila Viraghav Acharya has described the initial stage of sannyas called Kutichaka as follows. A man accepting the initial stage of sannyas arranges for his children or other relatives and well-wishers to build him a kuti or a meditation cottage. He gives up worldly affairs and sits within the cottage, trying to remain free from lust, anger, greed, illusion, and so on. According to the prescribed injunctions of regulated life, he accepts a tridanda, purifies himself with a water pot, shaves his head, leaving a shikha or tuft, chants Gayatri mantra on the sacred thread, and wears saffron garments. Bathing regularly, cleansing, performing achman, chanting japa, studying the Vedas, remaining celibate, and meditating on the Lord, he receives regular supplies of food from his children, friends, and relatives. Accepting only the bare necessities of life, he remains fixed in his cottage up to the moment of liberation. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. So, in this continuation of the previous and this chapters on the Varnashram Dharma, because by now you must have heard probably for the last 2 months. So, but this is the beauty of spiritual understanding spiritual scriptures, that the more we hear, we always find something or the other which we have not heard before. It really depends on our realizations. Sometimes some things click, sometimes we are not paying attention, sometimes some situations in life are such that we may have heard that before, but when we hear it again, it just makes sense. So Krishna has his own way of how to put it, and that is why Srila Prabhupada took this as a very important aspect of our daily life. One of the most important aspects, that the daily reading of and discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'd just like to take one moment to go into the basic, that we talk of Varnashram and we know the Varnas and the Ashrams. But just the meaning of Ashram, because often we say it without often really understanding how literally it actually means what we need to do. So the ashram is actually the word which comes from the word ashray. Ashray means to take shelter. So why does it become important? Is because when we talk of ashram, we talk of sannyas ashram, grihastha ashram, brahmachari ashram, vanprastha ashram. All are ashrams, which means all the common factor is that they need to take shelter of the Lord. That is the conclusion really of the Varnashram, of the ashrams, and then the Varnas would be the different orders and different activities or different, we have our own inclinations, our own talents, and how we decide on the occupations may be different. But there is no going away from the fact that if we even want to discuss or understand and what to speak of implement Varnashram, this is the first aspect, that ashram means to have a clear understanding that all ashrams, because generally we think that ashram means, okay, Valmiki Muni had an ashram, Kashyapa Muni had an ashram, but I have a house and I am staying in Mumbai, he was staying in a million years ago somewhere in a forest. That's the kind of impression we have. But actually ashram means, and this is what Prabhupada emphasized over and over again, that no matter what ashram we are in, we need to understand that we have to take shelter of the Lord. So if we have this understanding, then everything starts fitting in, because many of the differences are really based on, because 99.9% of the people will be in the grihastha ashram, which they will be married. But then generally grihastha ashram is meant to feel like you get married, so you're in grihastha ashram. So the difference we see is basically you get married or you don't get married. That is only partly true. The real essence of difference is, first of all, the commonality has to be understood, that all the ashrams have to take the shelter of the Lord. And then incidentally, you may be a tailor, a barber, a shopkeeper or whatever. Incidentally, you may be a brahmachari or a grihastha or a sannyasi. But that's the first principle. And secondly, as in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says, therefore, we know that the Varnashram system is authentic, it is scientific, it's created by Krishna. So therefore, it is bona fide. And of course, the acharyas have all been saying the same thing. It's another thing that today there's a poverty reflection, and therefore people, for political reasons, may be talking of caste. But primarily the differences were based on gunas and karmas. So, and those are natural. They're based on abilities, based on our inclinations, our own tendencies, and also what we have been blessed with. Everyone has different attributes. But that does not make somebody a superior or inferior, which is, so it was not based on birth. So therefore even Brahmins also, for instance, who were always respected because they were considered the head of society, but they themselves in their behavior never acted as an arrogant autocrat or something. So, in this connection, I wanted to bring an aspect about personality who spent several years in both the ashrams, and therefore we would have some idea of what went on and how the situations changed and what was Krishna's arrangement to and to make this great king leave his own inclinations and do what he was asked to do by his guru, his superiors and Krishna. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, from the very first chapter, Maharaj Parikshit is talking about, is asking the question to Sukdev Goswami that why is it that Maharaj Priyavrat got married? And he's really puzzled because, in his own case, Parikshit Maharaj's case, he was a great king, great lineage, and he had also acted in the most exemplary manner. And in the end, there was a very minor blip for which that Shingi had cursed him, and then he accepted it. Now, he himself had, on the spur of the moment, because of his whole lifetime of cultivation of understanding and living a life of Krishna-centric life, so he knew instantly that now if I only got 7 days, he just cut off all ties, went to the bank, and in the assembly of the greatest of all the saints, demigods, everyone, he chose to hear from Sukdev Goswami Maharaj. And so he demonstrated that we have to detach ourselves. He left his wife, family, his palace, occupation, everything, and instantly. There was no moment because he only had 7 days. So therefore he is wondering that why is it that Priyavrat Maharaj, earlier Sukdev Goswami Maharaj had referred to Priyavrat as a very self-satisfied soul who was living with Narad Muni. So Priyavrat Maharaj was the older son. His younger brother Uttanapad became king because Priyavrat did not want to be. So Priyavrat had no inclination. His father Swayambhuva Manu had asked him, but he left. He didn't have any inclination, so he left to stay with Narad Muni and enjoying the hearing, chanting, remembering about the Lord, about the glories. And he also got married. He was staying there and he did not get married because though he was asked to by his father, he had no inclination. But what happened is that because eventually in the lineage, in that lineage, Uttanapad's son was Dhruv Maharaj, and then who became king. And then following down the lineage, the Prachetas and the King Prachini Barishat, there was no likelihood of any continuation of the lineage. So there was a crisis. So though he had spent many years as a brahmachari with Narad Muni, he now had Priyavrat was asked by his father Swayambhuva Manu that it is a universal situation and you need to consider getting married. And he was so in spite of his own inclinations at that time of not wanting to get married, he decided that he would have to discharge his duties, and therefore he got married. He came to the back and then for many years again he continued his activities in a very exemplary manner. So Parikshit Maharaj had already heard, that there were so many great self-satisfied souls who had not got married. Narad Muni being one among many who had, Narad Muni's case, at a very young age, he just chose to he was left alone in one sense, but he accepted the whole world as his family, and he was preaching everywhere. He just kept on preaching continuously, and he didn't get entangled into any worldly situations. So he became a complete renunciate. Then the 4 Kumaras came after, where they were also asked by Lord Brahma, but they refused, and they also continued. In the modern times, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, Raghunath Das Goswami is another example, who was born in a billionaire's family, and he had everything. And also he was a great diplomat, he was an extremely intelligent, brilliant person, so he could have easily discharged his duties. But he had absolutely no inclination. He just wanted to spend his time with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he, it was really torture for him. And he tried to escape many times, but he couldn't escape initially. When Krishna was testing him, but then because he wanted only uninterrupted, undiverted service, eventually he succeeded. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the guidance how to come to him, and then he kept making an effort, and finally he did escape, and he lived the perfect life of renunciation. So he had all these examples, and therefore Maharaj Parikshit was trying to understand that if all these people found satisfaction, why did Priyavrat get married? And therefore Narad Muni, Swayambhuva Manu's persuasion finally did work on him, and he accepted his duty. Now same Narad Muni was also, he's been guru to so many great personalities. He also preached to Prahlad, little Prahlad, and we know in Prahlad's story how, his father Hiranyakashipu was the most powerful personality in the entire universe. Even the demigods he had defeated and was scared of him. And he was very intelligent but demoniac mentality. But Narad Muni had brought up Prahlad, and Prahlad from a childhood he was preaching to his friends about the dangers of Grihastha life. He said, among many things, that Grihastha life is like a deep dark well. That it's like a well without water. Just go sink into it, and even if you're in such agony and pain, there's nobody to hear you. So he really said that. He gave a very graphic example of what it means. And eventually Prahlad Maharaj also got married. So how do we understand the situation? That did he change sides, or did he flip his thinking? No, the thing is that as in the case of Priyavrat Maharaj and in the case of Prahlad Maharaj, they were doing what is best needed to serve. They were above this ashrams in that one sense. They were completely transcendental to the physical, because ultimately the Varnashram system is an organized system on the material platform. But his intentions, both their intentions were only one, that they were completely sold out as servants of the Lord, and therefore whatever the pure devotee, the Guru Maharaj told them, in what way they can serve, they went ahead with that. Prahlad Maharaj also got the blessings of all the sadhus, including Narad Muni, and then he had a son Virochan, whose son was Bali Maharaj. And we know that story, but so can we say that he was in a deep dark well, which he described? No. So both the examples of both these Priyavrat Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj tell us is that the difference between Grihamedi life and Grihastha life. So the only difference is that the center for Grihamedi life is sense enjoyment. That means all that our activities, our uppermost in our mind, would be, how do I find pleasure for myself? And even for devotees, one may think that I am coming to the temple, I'm wearing a dhoti or I'm having tilak, I'm chanting my rounds. But if our desires are constantly based on how we can find pleasure for ourselves, and that can be in so many different ways. So really it is a very tricky situation. It's a very internal situation, it's not an external situation. So the question is really sense enjoyment being the most uppermost object of life, essence of life, the focus of our life, or Krishna in the center. Now Krishna in the center, which makes it a grihastha life, has enormous challenges. So it is not to underestimate the challenges, it is not, and very, very few, we are talking of the greatest personalities around who are pure devotees. So it is not that it just happens overnight. We may be far from it, but first of all, we have to be clear what is our goal, and then against which we would need to not deviate from that and constantly measure ourselves against that. So, because none of the scriptures, they tell us the philosophy, they tell us the goal, but nobody tells us that, okay, about the specific day-to-day activities, that what kind of family I'll have, what kind of a job I'll have, which neighborhood I stay in, who's my, who are my friends, my school, etc. And these are the practical issues. We go through it and we form our views, our experiences make us behave in certain ways. We have our past legacy issues. So therefore we're trying, and here we hear the philosophy, we agree with the philosophy, and we want to live a life. So we are constantly pulled and confused sometimes, not knowing whether we're doing right or wrong. But the worst would be to close our minds and try to find a solution where Krishna is not in the picture. The best is that we accept it, and even if we make mistakes, we don't deviate from that path and take the help of sadhus and other great personalities who are around us, who can help us. So this kind of, and when Prahlad Maharaj was talking of the deep suffering, Radhanath Maharaj once mentioned that he was not talking of the suffering when he was preaching to his, instructing his boys, his friends. He was not talking only about the physical pain, when you are in a lot of pain and so on. But he was actually talking of the pain that you get when you live a life of illusion. You live a life of hope. So if you are in a Grihamedi life, it's not that the standard argument is that you see around, people you see in the newspapers or you see in movies or in television and everywhere, the hoardings, everyone seems to be smiling. So that flies in the face of what the scriptures are saying. But that is not true. First of all, we don't know what is inside everyone. Actually, we do know from the eyes of the Shastra, and we do know from our experiences. We have 100% certainty. I have 100% certainty. I just know, because you know when you know. It's like when you know, if you have eaten and you're full, you don't have to prove to someone, I know I'm full. I have eaten enough, I can't prove it, but I know I'm full. Similarly, it is when Shastra says something and you experienced it, you know that people are unhappy most of the time, and the happiness that we talk of is really the temporary absence of unhappiness, so-called unhappiness. So that is temporary, that's the so-called happiness. That means, as Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj beautifully explained, that when somebody is put inside the water for 20 seconds, his head is dunked inside, he can't breathe, and then he's brought out for 5 seconds, that 5 seconds of gasping for air, for him it is like happiness. So the absence of pain is really like this. So we are lurching from one to the other if we don't find a path which is linked to Krishna. So Krishna in the center means, and we have not seen Krishna, but we understand Krishna from the practices that we follow, the examples that we see around us. The scriptures tell us that, and also in the temples and where we see the beautiful forms of the Lord. So in as many ways as we can surround ourselves with that, that's really where, so the question that we have to constantly see is that what is our, how are we living a life according to the measurement of as given in the Shastras. So if we think we are happy, that's not the question. The question is not, we can't be measuring we can't be measuring our own happiness, but we can be experiencing it, and we knowing that what is, if I'm constantly in anxiety, thinking about this, that, and living according to that, versus dealing with the anxieties, but actually finding genuine happiness, satisfaction, and also somewhat of a peaceful nature relatively within a material world when we are in the association and embrace of devotees, and like for instance when we are hearing from saintly personalities, when we go on yatras, it is not that the problems have gone away, but it gives us an understanding, a glimpse of what our life can be if we were to multiply it in that same way and follow it without deviation. So so in our case also, when the decision is there, whether we get married or whether we stay in which ashram, has to be preceded by the first an important understanding that the life is meant for, irrespective of that, the life is meant for taking shelter of the Lord, and within that then we have our own duties. So for instance, even in Grihastha life, it is the only ashram which is allowed to earn money, and therefore, but the obligation is, not obligation, but it is a privilege for Grihasthas that the Krishna has given this opportunity, and whatever they are able to earn, that they should be providing for the other three ashrams. Now, the attitude, if has to be of, like we see in the case of Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj, can there be any better Grihastha than Nanda Maharaj? I mean, he was the greatest, he was eternally a Grihastha, eternally father of Krishna. And yet when Garga Muni, who was a Brahmin, a sadhu, came to his house, Nanda Maharaj is actually speaking to him with such humility, saying, that we are such fallen souls, and we really need the shelter of sadhus. Without your coming to our house, we would be doomed. We would be completely finished. So he said it's a trick that when sadhus like you come to beg in a house, you give the impression that as if you are wanting something. But actually you have come to give something. You are giving actually the blessings, you are giving us the guidance, you are giving us protection. So this is the attitude and mood that Nanda Maharaj explains to for all of us to understand of how a Grihastha can move. So when we associate with devotees, we understand that we are always here we are under obligation. Of course, we are under obligation to Krishna, first of all, when he brought us to the movement, to the temple, to the association. Then we are grateful, and we are under obligation to Srila Prabhupada, because we wouldn't have understood anything about what Vaishnava Dharma was and so on. But also we are obligated to even our contemporary sadhus, and how to understand that we see it from the eyes of the Shastra, that those who are living that life, like for instance the Shastra say that the brahmachari is the legs of society. In the Varnashram system, if the Brahmin is considered as the brain, each part is needed. It's not that the brain can function on its own. It needs the hands, legs, stomach, everything. And the legs can't be on its own also. It needs the rest of the body. But the brahmacharis are given the lowest part of the body, that is the legs. And the legs are meant to serve all the other bodies. So it doesn't consider, it is an intelligent person who understands that though it is the lowest part, and though it is actually meant to serve, but in serving, it gains the highest respect. And therefore, the Grihastha is considered to be like the stomach, where everything comes there, and then the food comes in, the blood flows out, etc. But the Kshatriyas are meant to be the hands and of the body. So each part has to be interwoven with the others. And as a Grihastha, we appreciate and not only appreciate but we respect the other ashrams, and knowing that without their mercy we cannot survive in spiritual life. And that is actually a very, very important principle, that without their mercy we cannot proceed. And actually bhakti means that only. Bhakti is, we may say that I'm chanting 16 rounds or I'm hearing regularly, but actually our progress will only happen if we are pleasing the sadhus, because by invoking their blessings, then only we will be able to make progress. So our measurement or our progress is only dependent on the mercy of the sadhu. So the process we follow is only to please them, and by pleasing them, we get their mercy. So it is not that we do it to please them. If we have that thought, then we are not pleasing them. So it is that we just do it with a full sincerity and complete conviction that this is the process. The struggle is 100%. Effort has to be 100%. Whether we succeed fully, partly, it's not in our hands. The glory is to live that life. Just like we take the examples of, we glorify Queen Kunti, Amrish Maharaj. Now, why do we glorify them really? If you see, Queen Kunti, was she glorified because she was the mother of the king of the universe, Yudhishthir, or that eventually her sons won the battle against righteousness versus evil? No, because her glories were that her prayers, Srila Prabhupada wrote an entire essay, means he spoke several days, and then it is a separate book on Queen Kunti's prayers. Those prayers are because makes her glorious, and those were spoken at the end of the war, when everything was so-called materially, fine. The enemies were finished. Yudhishthira Maharaj was about to be anointed as the emperor of the whole universe, and then she speaks these heartfelt prayers because she sees her nephew, but the Lord of the universe, Krishna, going back to Dwarka. So that means she is glorified because she showed the ultimate renunciation. She was completely detached from all the other aspects, and that came instantaneously. Parikshit Maharaj, instantaneously when it was needed. And so Amrish Maharaj, when he was put in a difficult spot by Durvasa Muni, instantaneously he acted in the best possible way. So that means they were completely they were detached from their own comforts, even though they had the full powers of the universe. There was nobody more powerful than them. But they did what was needed to do rather than what they wanted to do. So Prabhupada explains that whatever choices we make, and whether we get married or we stay in the ashram, those are choices which most of us would get married. But sometimes, then he says you should do it. We have to be in the best situation we are in to be able to serve. We should be in the strongest position we are in to be able to serve. He says this also very nicely in the pastimes of Gajendra, the king of the elephants, who was the most powerful personality and also a very great person who had the full respect of the entire elephant world. But then when he was caught by the crocodile, because the crocodile was in the water and the crocodile, that was its natural surroundings, well, Gajendra was much stronger on the land. So he was becoming weaker and weaker in the water, even after thousands of years went by in that struggle. And eventually only when Gajendra pleaded to Lord Vishnu and prayed to him, then he was transformed. So this example was given by Prabhupada to tell us that we should select our situation where we are best able to serve. Not imitating someone else or think that because someone is doing that, I will do it. Whether choice of marriage or not, or whether in choice of service or in choice of any choices we make, we have to see what is not what I like the best, but what would help me to serve in the best possible way. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has famously said that, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Shudra, I'm not Vaishya, etc. I'm just a servant of the servant of the servant. So this becomes the guiding principle, that as a servant, what do we do? So when Brahma told Priyavat, you can best serve as king, he became the king. When Prahlad also was told that he could do best do it, he did it. So according to their own inclinations, so either we do it according to a guna and karma, which is really for most of us the case, because depending on our activities and so on, or there are special cases where it is we are told because it's in the best way we can serve, like in the case of Maharaj Parikshit and Maharaj Priyavrat and Prahlad Maharaj. And also, Priyavrat Maharaj, then he did ask, he expressed his anxieties at that time. So very important point was made by Lord Brahma. In effect, he said in his long prayers that basically if you just serve, if you do it, if you're trying to do the best way to serve, you will be protected. So this protection overcomes all other obstacles. If you're doing on the right path and if you've got the blessings of the key people, then we will be protected against, because we don't have that ability to outthink or to outsmart or to figure out our own security and protection. If you are constantly worried about that, then it's assuming that we have the controls of how things work. But actually we have to leave it. At some point in time we have to leave it, but not whimsically on anyone's hands, but actually in the when we have the blessings and we take it from the seniors or the spiritual master especially, or his representatives, then we have that faith, we don't have any doubts, no apprehensions, and we just continue to follow that. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur played that Griha Thakur, Vane Thakur, Sadahari Bole Thakur, he also said that same thing, that doesn't matter which ashram we are in. Narottam Das Thakur also, who came a couple of hundred years before him, he was Bhaktivinoda Thakur was one of the greatest grihasthas as a role model. And Narottam Das Thakur was one of the greatest Naishtaka brahmacharis. He said the same thing in his prayers. So basically, the constant refrain we hear from the acharyas is that we understand that shelter of the Lord and doing question is how best we can serve. That supersedes everything else. And then how it fits into our life, whatever choice we've made, the choice should be done in a natural way, where we can serve best. But the service is most important. The other things will just follow. It is a detail relatively as to where we will fit in. And then within that fitment, when we come understand day-to-day or regular issues which have to be solved but which always are bothering and which are not the same for everyone, that guidance can come later. But not at the expense that I can solve it by just abandoning the process of Krishna consciousness. We also see in the, for us Vaishnavas, in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, the 12 Mahajans are the key guiding posts for all things. And even there are so many who, like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, who were grihasthas. And then you also had Shukdev Goswami Maharaj, Bhishma Dev, as great examples of, who were celibate, who were renounced in the renounce order, did not get married. So it is really immaterial. You can't say one is better than the other. So, we have just a couple of minutes in case anyone has any questions. We'll end here otherwise. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.